There's someone in your life right now who is not who you think they are. And the terrifying part? They might not even know it themselves. We live in a world of masks. Beautiful, convincing masks worn by people who wake up every morning and genuinely believe they're good. They volunteer. They donate. They post about kindness and mental health awareness. They hug their mothers. They cry at movies about injustice. And yet, in the moments that matter most, they reveal something darker, something they've spent their entire lives hiding from themselves. This is not a conversation about evil people. Evil people know what they are. They've made their peace with it. This is about something far more dangerous. The ordinary person walking through life, completely convinced of their own goodness, while being capable of stunning cruelty, manipulation, and betrayal when the stakes get high enough. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago, but we still haven't learned the lesson. He didn't write about morality because morality, in his view, was never the real currency of human interaction. Power was. And the path to power required understanding something that most people spend their entire lives denying, that the image of being good is far more valuable than actually being good. Here's the brutal truth that changes everything. A person who genuinely tries to be good is predictable, vulnerable, and easily manipulated. But a person who is excellent at appearing good while remaining free to act however necessity demands, that person controls the narrative, that person controls other people, that person gets what they want, and this is where it gets dark. Because most people you know aren't intentionally evil. They're not sitting in rooms plotting destruction. They're just people who've learned, either consciously or unconsciously, that their survival, their status, their comfort depends on maintaining a version of themselves that the world finds acceptable. The gap between who they actually are and who they pretend to be is where the real darkness lives. Think about the person who tells you they care about your feelings, but somehow always finds a way to make every conversation about their problems. Think about the friend who claims to want the best for you, but whose eyes light up just a little too bright when you fail. Think about the colleague who presents themselves as a team player, but will throw you under the bus the moment your success becomes a threat to theirs. These people aren't monsters. They're just people who've learned to manage their image better than they manage their character. The psychological mechanism is actually quite simple. Our brains are wired for survival first and integrity second. When those two things conflict, integrity loses almost every time. The person who cuts in line isn't cutting in line because they're evil. They're cutting because on some level they've convinced themselves that their time is more valuable, their day is more important, their needs matter more. And they've learned that if they do it with confidence, if they do it while smiling, if they do it while their identity is wrapped up in being someone who cares about fairness, most people won't even challenge them. This is the dark genius of the performance. The mask doesn't just protect the person wearing it. It actively confuses everyone around them. We're trained from childhood to trust people's words, to believe their stated intentions, to assume that consistency of personality means consistency of character. But what if the performance is actually the whole person? What if the mask is their face? Machiavelli's insight was radical for his time, but it's almost mundane now. He said that a prince should be merciful when it helps him maintain power, cruel when it's necessary. The key word wasn't mercy or cruelty. It was appear. Appear merciful, appear strong, appear just. The appearance mattered more than the reality, because the appearance shaped people's behavior toward you, and we've all internalized this lesson without even realizing it. You know how to be different versions of yourself depending on your audience. With your parents, you're one person. With your boss, another. With your friends, another still. And you've justified this fragmentation by calling it maturity, social, intelligence, adaptation. But what if it's actually something else? What if it's the slow erosion of your actual self, replaced by a committee of performances designed to get what you want from different people? The most dangerous person in any room isn't the one who's openly selfish. It's the one who genuinely believes their own lie. It's the one who can betray you while maintaining eye contact and telling themselves they're being merciful. It's the one who can watch you suffer and frame it as tough love. It's the one who can benefit from your downfall while sincerely mourning your loss. This is where the real darkness lives. Not in the conscious decision to harm someone, but in the unconscious decision to protect yourself so thoroughly, to rationalize your behavior so completely that you become immune to the weight of your own hypocrisy. And here's what nobody wants to admit. You're doing it too. You might not want to hear that. You might be reading this and feeling defensive, thinking this doesn't apply to you because you actually care about being good. But the fact that you're defensive means the message found something. Because we're all navigating this same fundamental conflict, the person we want to believe we are versus the person our actions sometimes reveal us to be. The people who pretend to be good and get away with it aren't getting away with it because they're smarter than you. They're getting away with it because you're giving them permission. You're giving them permission every time you assume good intentions, every time you make excuses for their behavior, every time you accept their explanation instead of believing your own experience, every time you let them define what happened between you instead of trusting what you felt. Machiavelli would say, "You're doing it because it's easier." And he'd be right. It's easier to believe someone is good than to accept that someone you love is capable of hurting you and might not even care. It's easier to assume misunderstanding than to accept betrayal. It's easier to trust the mask than to look at the face underneath. But the moment you stop giving permission is the moment your life changes. Because you start seeing people differently. You notice the inconsistencies. You hear the things they're not saying. You see how their behavior toward you shifts depending on who's watching. You realize that their niceness to you is directly proportional to what they think they can get from you. And you finally understand that you've been reading their script instead of their reality. This isn't cynicism. This is clarity. This is the kind of wisdom that Machiavelli was pointing toward when he wrote about power and manipulation. He wasn't celebrating cruelty. He was exposing the machinery underneath, what we call civilization. He was saying, if you want to understand why people do what they do, stop listening to what they claim to believe and start watching what they actually choose when nobody's paying attention. The person who pretends to be good is often the most dangerous because they have the world's permission to hurt you. Their victims are always confused. They're always asking, "But I thought you were my friend. I thought you cared." Because good people don't betray. Good people don't manipulate. Good people don't prioritize their own comfort over your suffering. And if this person is good, then something else must be true. Maybe I deserved it. Maybe I misunderstood. Maybe I'm the problem. This is the trap. This is where the performance becomes a prison for everyone involved. The deepest wisdom here isn't about becoming more manipulative yourself or losing faith in everyone. It's about seeing clearly. It's about understanding that most people are not good or bad. They're contextual. They're capable of tremendous kindness when it costs them nothing and staggering cruelty when it benefits them. And they'll build an entire identity around goodness to protect themselves from the shame of that realization. Your job isn't to become like them. Your job is to see clearly enough to protect yourself from them. To build relationships with people whose actions match their words. To hold boundaries with people whose masks are slipping. To stop giving permission to people who've shown you exactly who they are. Because here's the final truth. A person who admits they're flawed, who owns their mistakes, who acknowledges their capacity for harm. That person is often more trustworthy than someone who's spent their entire life proving how good they are. The person with nothing to hide is far less dangerous than the person who's hiding everything behind a smile. This is the dark psychology that Machiavelli saw. Not that people are evil, but that the performance of goodness is often a more effective survival strategy than actually being good. And the only way to protect yourself is to stop believing the performance and start believing the evidence. The question isn't whether the people around you are good or bad. The question is whether their actions are consistent with their words. Everything else is just noise and theater.